up. Like,
Okay, so
I'm
this is your like daily workflow. This is how you've been shipping hundreds of thousands of lines of code a month. It's all in here.
Yeah, that's right. So I dropped like 13 PRs in the last 48 hours, and then you just queue them up. Like anytime I come up with a new idea, I come in and here it is. I love using the CEO skill. I love using the Eng skill to like really make it super well tested. I did that all in plan mode, and then I'd click approve here, and then Claude would go and do all the stuff. And then I did that so much that I ended up having like 15 different features that were all queued up waiting for me to manually test it. Like it passed it, it passed end-to-end testing, it passed integration, it passed unit tests, but like at the end of the day, I still need to, for Gary's list, it's like pop open the Rails server and like, load that user and like make it into that configuration for that particular user and like manually just make sure it works. And I got sick of doing that. And I was trying to use Claude Encode MCP, and it was very, very slow. 2 to 3 seconds for every turn.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not usable for QA. But I had heard that Microsoft had released Playwright, which is sort of an alternative testing framework. In retrospect, it's like actually there was like there were like Agent Harness and like all these other like tools that I could have used. But the upside and downside of Claude Code is it's so easy to just start something that I just popped open. Like I literally went in here, and this is probably what I did. It's like I'm so sick of using Claude. Claude in Chrome MCP, it's too slow. Let's go ahead and wrap Microsoft's Playwright. Can we do that? And then I just pressed enter. And then, one of the things that emerged with GStack is that like, this is how I create new features now. Of course, what it's going to do now is like, hey, dude, you already did that, which is hilarious. I have bug fixes right next to giant features. And then the way GStack works, there's a CEO, there's a designer, there's actually a developer experience person in there.
Okay.
There's a number of design tools. And then Plan Eng is the last one. And then I actually usually run /codex. And I recently added a /Claude in codex. So one of the cool things that I actually learned from YC alums, I came to an event and brain totally frazzled, but, went to one of our batch events and we were just, shooting the shit about what's going on with Claude Code versus Codex. And at the time, I was a total Claude Code only guy. And I realized, oh, a lot of people actually prefer Codex. Why is that? And I discovered that Claude Code is ideal for the ADHD CEO. But once in a while, there's Claude Code will just BS a bunch of stuff. Like Claude models are very, very good, but like they are not the smartest, it turns out. And so a lot of people, explained to me that if you have a problem that's much crazier, you need the 200 IQ, nearly nonverbal CTO. So you can just call in a friend, and then that's what like /codex is. It's a GStack skill that takes whatever your plan is, or if you're out of plan mode and you already implemented, it'll take your repo and it'll run codex in a command line prompt with the prompt that says find all the problems and all the bugs, and it reports it back to Claude Code, and then you and Claude Code can work through that feedback. And then I have since added, if you use Codex as your main coding agent, you can actually go and type /Claude and have Claude come and be the CEO briefly if you want as well. The cool thing about GStack is when I run it through this program, like I start with office hours, CEO review, like I do design if there's UI, if I know a developer needs to use it, which is like practically all of GStack and GBrain stuff, I run the developer review. And then I do Eng review, and then Codex. Once that plan is done, I've worked through all of the issues. The GStack relies very heavily on ask user question. So, because, and that to me is like really important. That's where the human, vibe coder, operator, agentic engineer needs to supply their understanding of what's going on, what are we building. There's not really a substitute to that. It would surprise me very much if someone really truly did manage to make a thing that could just make software without the human in the loop. Like that, it's a controversial take, I think, but I never want to be entirely out of the loop. I just want the machine to do the stuff that I don't want to do. And so, basically QA is a good example. And, that's hilarious. Coming back to the demo, it's like, I type something into the modern version of GStack and it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we already built that. We have browse. Browse is a long-lived HTTP daemon with 70 commands as a CLI. And then QA is just browse. But in the prompt for QA, it says, look in your context. What did we do on this branch? If there's UI or any mutation of data, go and use the browser to test that thing. Which is cool. It's like having a black box browser. It blew my mind when it first worked. It's like mini AGI is already here. I realize this is not true AGI. True AGI would be like, I'm not even here. And actually that's fine. In this respect, like as a builder, selfishly, I hope that we never have to stop. I hope that the machines never figure it out, because that would be really cool. Like then, humans are really important, and like engineers who know how to do this, who have taste in design and product feedback and, the real customer in mind, like we're going to be like, we basically have wings for as long as we do.
YC Startup School is back. We're hand selecting the most promising builders in the world and flying them out to San Francisco for July 25th and 26th to discuss the cutting edge of tech. Apply now for a spot. Okay, back to the video. I think you crystallize a lot of these thinking in this post on X about thin hardness and fat skills.
Oh, yes.
Which actually encompasses all of this philosophy on how to token max.
Yeah. I mean, some of it came out of being trolled on the internet relentlessly about Markdown, and like, I'm just like peddling a set of Markdown. And it's like, I guess my lived experience at this point is that Markdown is actually code. It's just like this compiled in a different way, but like you can get the computer to do really astonishing things. Like, I mean, even this, it's like, could we have imagined that I would be talking to something that has replaced Visual Studio? I don't use Visual Studio at all. Like, there's no reason to, like, when I can talk to my agent and my agent can do this, right? The article actually, the name actually came from our partner, Pete Kumin. We have had to build an internal agent, and, we call that the harness, over and over again. And then at some point, using Claude Code all day, we realized, like, why should we rewrite a version of that over and over again? Like, we should just use the things that are really awesome as, harnesses. Like a harness is the core loop that takes the user input, gives it to the LLM, runs what the LLM does. Like it can do tool calls and things like that. I mean, why would we build that? Like what we should be spending all our time doing is thinking about what markdown should there be. And the way to think about markdown is if you were an event planner and throwing a wedding and you were trying to write down a checklist of how to throw a wedding again. Like what would you write in plain English to teach the next person who had to do it what to do? All of that should be in the markdown. Whereas all the things that should, be deterministic, like or is a real action. Like a wedding planner might have to call like 20 venues, right? But you wouldn't use markdown for that. Like you would make a call to Twilio, for instance, right? There's like sort of all of the difficulty in agentic engineering today is when people try to do things that should be in markdown in code, and it fails because code is brittle. It doesn't understand special cases. It does actually, code literally doesn't understand what you want or who you are. It is like, executing deterministic zeros and ones in a Turing complete loop, right? Like it doesn't know. But then now we have LLMs that have latent space and they know who you are, and it knows what your motivations are, and it can handle generic cases. And then, a lot of the magic right now as an engineer is like figuring out, okay, how much of it is over here in LLM land and how much of it is over there in code land. And then, if you combine that with the other thing I learned, which is like get to 80 to 90% tests. Like if it's not tested and you're just throwing users in there, like it's slop, 10x worse than like human written code. Cause like you just have no idea what's going to happen. And so that's like one of the things that people have to do. It's like, all right, not only do you need to figure out what's going on in latent space and deterministic space, you also have to make sure that like it's, unit individually tested and then the integration is tested. And then going back to Boil the Ocean, like the machine doesn't care. It'll just do it. It's amazing. Like just zap the rocks more and you can get to 90% test coverage. And then you can have a system that, is not quite perfect. Like, OpenClaw right now, there are lots of like failure cases, but it's 95% there. It's I feel like using OpenClaw these days is like driving a Ferrari, and it's like exhilarating. It's insane. Like, you get to do things like it figures things out you would never think a machine could figure out, and it does it so quickly. But then it's also like a Ferrari in that you better be a mechanic. Like, it's a Ferrari that will break down on the side of the road, when you most need it, and you need to get out with your wrench and pop the hood and like fix it. You're gonna have to fix it yourself. And so this is a very exciting time in computer science and technology, because it's like this is Homebrew Computer Club. The moment when the Apple One came out, like the Apple One created by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, was a breadboard inside like literally a wooden case hammered together with like nails and duct tape, And if you wanted a personal computer, that's what you had to do. And that's where we're at right now. Like, you have relatively, smart technical, and people who had to study computer science have to spend like 2 or 3 hours and like maybe like $500 or $1,000 in both